Trusted Vision weekly podcast. Stacey, I'm excited that we're going to start a new monthly series. This one is going to be fun in that we decided to switch it up a little bit and discuss something different. But before I say that, I hope that our audience, everybody had a happy Halloween and had a great time. I know our kids had a great time. Stacey, I know you didn't dress up, but you were missing out. So to our audience, this week we're going to cover trends and red flags of the broker-dealer consolidation we've seen in the past from a trend standpoint, but we're also going to cover, some red flags and things to consider if your broker-dealer has been sold or they potentially are going to be sold. And the rest of this month, we're going to continue with various topics talking about trends and red flags in the industry. So I'm really excited about it just because it takes us down a whole different path of allowing our audience to learn what some of those trends are, because they're so focused on serving their clients and building their practice that they probably don't keep up with a lot of the trends and red flags. So Stacey, as we've seen over the last 5-7 years, that the broker-dealer space is an ever-consolidating space that's continuing to consolidate. So if we can start with you, and if you can kind of talk about the trends in the broker-dealer space from a consolidation standpoint.
Absolutely. I was just on the phone with someone that is going through a merger of their broker dealer right now. And we talked about that. And he's like, well, every firm is going through it. And it's just the nature. Everyone consolidates. It's all going to happen. And those that haven't, it's coming, right? With such a dark and negative view. And it just is this, this emotional set of, I've kind of just given up. And it doesn't have to be that way, but I do think that there's a natural trend in any industry to see consolidation, mergers, and firms just buy each other up. You've got that lovely background right now, but it reminds me of an analogy at my prior firm where we talked about just look at the car industry. How many, when that industry was new, how many new businesses, how many brands there were, and how many are there now that really compete, right? And so I think, when's the last time you've seen one buy up another? I mean, it happens. You pick an industry, you start to see things kind of consolidate down. Jeremy, you and I were just talking about prior to this call, how we went from 5,000 plus broker dealers to what, 3,200 now?
Yep.
I mean, the pressure increases. So if you are a smaller broker dealer, the pressure is there from how do you keep up with the technology needs? How do you keep up in the regulatory environment? And how do you keep up in a recruiting environment that's just, aggressive? That's the best way I can put it by some firms. If you're a small firm out there, you just can't pay out the transition funds that you're seeing at the top independent broker dealers out there. So it makes it hard, even though I love some of these small broker dealers, what they stand for, the relationships, we know quite a few of them, but it absolutely makes it hard when the trend is bigger, better, more integration, and lower pricing. So it is a real thing that there's a lot of pressure for these firms. And I was just quickly, I'll just run through. I was just thinking back to when I was kind of first went through as a recruiter, back when the Pac Life broker dealers were sold, and the process of a sale from where it was to where it now is, it's come a long ways too. You got a little bit more time to digest, to analyze, to work through it, and that is a good thing. But there is still hope in that process. You don't just have to roll over and take it either. So, Jeremy, whether you like that trend or not, that's kind of where we're going. And I think advisors, everyone has to ask the question, who owns my firm? What's the future look like? And you should probably look at the financials too, so you can understand what the pressures are at. So,
Yes.
What else are you thinking of on the red flag side?
So to your point, and those are great points, Stacey, is, this is an ever consolidating marketplace. And it's really for a lot of these broker dealers, a race to scale to see who can be, the biggest and the best. And then you'll see transition monies and everything else like that scale back. From a red flag standpoint, whether your firm has been sold, whether you're in negotiations to be sold, whether there's rumors that it's going to be sold. And this isn't a knock to the acquirers out there by any means. But some red flags for our audience out there when any of those scenarios have happened is any firm that acquires your firm, they're going to tell you all the good stuff. They're going to tell you, hey, we're not going to roll you into our firm, or we're not going to change technology. The culture isn't going to change. And I'm not bad mouthing them from that perspective. But if you look historically back on pretty much every firm out there that has acquired other firms or brought in private equity, there have been changes. There's not going to be changes until the sell is final. But if you look back at a lot of those broker dealers, to your point, Pac Life, hey, we're going to keep purging. We're not going to roll you up into one. What happened? 12 months later, they rolled them all up into one and got rid of purging. You see some of these acquisitions today that are going on right now. I have an article from 3 years ago of a firm saying, hey, we have no desire to roll these other firms up into ours. What's happening today? They're rolling those firms up into one. They mentioned they have no desire to go public. Now they're potentially looking at going public. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for an advisor, but it's something to look out for and know that the acquirer's job is to retain at least 70%, if not much higher, of the advisors. So they're not going to make any of those changes until after it takes place, the acquisition takes place, and then you're going to see those changes. So to our audience, I would say, first and foremost, be very careful when looking at taking retention money when your firm has been acquired or is going to be acquired. Talk to professionals like Stacey and I, whether it's Trusted Visions or any other firm, get some insight as to historically what happens when you've been acquired and what's going to look like, what it's going to look like going forward. And that way you're educated, because, it's important to know change is coming. And I think you said this perfect on one of our podcasts, Stacey. The one thing that's constant is change in our industry. And so you just got to know that all the good stuff that are saying, it may be good in the future, but there's going to be bumps along the road as they make those changes once the sell is final. So again, not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to happen. And so to our audience, this is where it comes back to Stacey and I's points that we hound advisors constantly about, is make sure that you have a plan B in place, no matter what. And we talk to advisors every day of saying, hey, at least get an offer from some of these firms, look at their technology. And at the end of the day, if you say, I'm better off where I'm at, that's okay. At least you know what's out there versus waiting until those changes take place. Now you're scrambling to, find a firm and what they have to offer before those changes take place. Because the last red flag I'd mention is when they make those changes, these acquirers make those changes. It's not like they say, Stacey, we're doing this in 6-12 months. It's, hey, we're doing this in the next 30-45 days. And the rationale behind doing that is because they want to make sure that you don't have enough time to make a broker-dealer change before those changes are implemented. And once those changes are in process of being implemented, it's going to make it that much harder to move, because your accounts are in flux with whatever change that may be, whether you're being rolled up into one, whether you're going self-clearing, whether you're switching clearing firms, whatever that may be. So audience, I hope you found this informative and informational. Would love to have a conversation with you about what your firm is going through. Even if you have questions about, hey, are there rumors about my firm being potentially sold? We'd love to talk to you. Stacey, as always, your contact information.
You can reach me at 641-919-6722. And my email is stacy.martin@trustedvisions.com.
And for me, you can call me or text me at 480-430-5012 or info@trustedvisions.com. Stacey, I look forward to digging more into this topic next week and throughout the month. To our audience, I hope you have a blessed week and a great weekend.